رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. All praise be to Allah, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and those who follow in his footsteps till the last day. Last time we talked about two things with regard to the speech or kalam, and we said there is khabar and there is insha. Yani the ulama divided two things, khabar and insha, okay? And they said al-khabar is usually, they say محتمل الصحة والبطلان أو الصدق والكذب. This is what they said about khabar. They said the khabar is can be said it is true or false, okay? However, the Sheikh bin Uthaymeen rahimahullah, and as it is the way of our eminent scholars to protect to the deen of Allah, excuse me, I have a call, so you can start to preserve the foundations of the deen. And they said we cannot describe, Allah's Sharia as, as we describe al-khabar in the definition they derived. So he said, rather we should categorize al-khabar into three. One of them is that which cannot be described as false at all. And it is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, in His wahi, whether it is the Quran or the Sunnah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has reported. And this is, khabar, true in its essence, genuine and original. Nobody can claim that it is otherwise. And he said what the other khabar is what can be described as true, like what he said, information about what's legally or logically impossible. Okay. For example, like information from one who claims prophethood after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what cannot be described as true. What cannot be described as true. And he said the third, because we know for granted that there will be no prophet after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After all, our noble prophet and Khatam al-Nabiyyin, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the third, what could be equally described as either true or false or truthful, and being false. And this is whatever other than that, okay? Whatever other than that can be described. And this is a good categorization of khabar, okay? Any khabar that comes from any human being is, as we said, it carries a possibility to be true or false. However, if it goes against what we know from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then period, it cannot be true, okay? Or it is false. If it is, a report from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, authentically transmitted, or the hadith, from, or the Quran, then there is no doubt that it is truth. Now, the truthfulness and the rank of knowing this as truth, as true, or knowing this as falsehood, okay, it has grades. And if you recall, we can go back to know حق اليقين عين اليقين علم اليقين عين اليقين حق اليقين. And if it is doubt, something doubtful, suspicious, or something that cannot be, it's illusions, okay? Supreme example to Allah and to His deen, other than that, it carries a possibility of being true or false. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said is totally true. And in the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا تصدقوا أهل الكتاب ولا تكذبوهم. Do not, you know, confirm or affirm or approve what the people of the book brings you or tells you of what they have of their scriptures, and do not, belay them. This statement, some people would take it so literally to to just stop and not to say anything about any narration that comes from the people of the book. However, the ulama, they said, rather, there are certain issues that we cannot attain to know its truthfulness from falsehood. But if it comes to a narration that goes against the essence of Sharia, or it goes against what we know from the foundation of the deen, like the infallibility of the prophets, yani, those people, they relate some shameful stories that cannot be ascribed to laymen, okay, at their times or at any time. How yani, far removed and dignified the status of the prophets. And those people, they ascribe to them shameful things. This should be, we should, belay it, and we should, actually uh, say that it is false and it cannot be at all, because from the foundations of the deen, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted, preservation and protection, and He granted, the honor of the prophets. Now, if other than that, stories, details about certain issues that had taken place that could carry, it doesn't go against any basics of what we know from our deen. It doesn't go against anything we know from the deen or from the ethics. Then we may, not reject or approve of it. Okay, I hope this is clear. So this is the akhbar. Now today we will talk about, the khabar, definition of insha. Sorry, and this was on page 65. He said the definition of insha, it is a statement which is neither true nor false. Have you read last time, Sheikh Abdul Majid?
We completed that, Sheikh. Now we had to go to the page number 60, 56, 66.
Okay.
The khabar insha is your, yes, 66.
Okay, let me then just go over it briefly. Then the statement that cannot be said true or false, then this is what we say insha. So if you say to someone, establish salah, aqim salah, you cannot say the statement is true or false, okay? But you can say this is a command, this is a correct command, something good or something bad. But you cannot say to the statement in itself that it is, false or true. Do not associate any partners along with Allah. Okay, this is insha. And they said insha is divided into two categories, talabi and, غير طلبي. الطلبي وما ليس بطلبي, a request to do something. غير طلبي, not requesting anything. الطلبي, which is request, they again divided it into categories. If you haven't read so far from here, let's read.
Yeah, okay, we'll read it, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Firstly, talabi, request. It is what is requested but not accomplished at the time of making the request. And this has various categories. Number one, amr, that is positive imperative. A request to do something by using one of the forms of command. For example, obey your parent. Number two, nahi, that is negative imperative. A request to refrain from doing an action by using one of its forms. For example, do not curtail your duties. Number 3, istifham, question, a request to understand something. For example, have you revised your lesson? Number 4, tamanni, that is desire, to seek something that is either impossible or extremely difficult to achieve. Tamanni is one of a number of particles which carry the same meaning. For example, I wish youth were sold so I could buy it. Another example, I wish Muslims would unite. Category number 5, taraji, that is wish, to seek something that can happen. Taraji is one of a number of particles which carry the same meaning. For example, I wish Muslim youths would turn to the fountain from which their pure religion was established. Number 6, ard, petition, a request for something to be gentler. For example, when you say to a friend, won't you visit your friend? Number 7, tahreed, that is incitement, a request for someone to do something by urging and encouraging him. For example, will you not fight people who violated their oaths, plotted to expel the messenger, and became aggressive by being the first to assault you? These are the 7 categories, Sheikh. You like to explain this?
Yes, inshallah. Let's go over it, inshallah, quickly. You haven't gone through the, or this is, we have gone through it last time.
Yes. No, footnotes related to the previous one, Sheikh. This is
okay, nice. طيب, he said الطلبي, the firstly of insha is الإنشاء الطلبي, and he divided it into categories, okay, various categories. He said the first thing is al-amr, and this is the positive imperative, and this is a request to do something by using one of the forms of command, and usually it is from a high post to a lower post. It is from a higher post to a lower post, okay? And it cannot be, from lower to high, to say, and a soldier or a person who's, employed. The employee cannot say to his employer or to his manager, Amr, okay? It would be a gentle request as will come and follows. And he gave an example. He said, for example, obey your parent. So this usually it comes from an advisor. Either it is from the father or from, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he said, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And to the Amr, is the Nahi. Nahi is like Amr, but it's in the negation form. So negative imperative, it's a request to refrain from doing an act by using one of its forms. For example, do not curtail your duties, okay? Or curtail your duties. Do not, postpone your homework, for example. And النهي والأمر, again, it comes from a high post to a lower post, usually. Istifham is the question, a request to understand something. For example, have you revised your lesson? And this question and istifham can be from both, okay? Up to down, down to up. Istifham is usually, you want a clarification. So you might request the clarification whether you are, employee or employer, and so on. Tamanni, raja or tamanni, to seek something that's either impossible or extremely difficult, okay, to achieve. And this is different than taraji. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ليس الإيمان بالتمني, okay. Iman cannot be just vain wishes, okay, without working for that. So he said, tamanni is to seek something that's either impossible or extremely difficult to achieve, or I could add that a person just give vain wishes. He doesn't want to do anything. Like if you find somebody who's not having, who's not guided to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he said to you, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, likes to guide us, please, we wish that Allah guides us, but he's not doing any effort towards guidance. While this person, if he's, for example, if we was told of a person who likes to be a doctor, and he's staying home, not doing any efforts, this is impossible. It cannot be. So tamanni is something, a person wishes. It's vain wishes. He said, I wish yours were sold so I could buy it. It's vain. Nobody can have that, okay? Otherwise, it would have been done. Like some ulama, they said, subhanallah, of those people who waste their times. I wish if I could, if time can be, sold or can be bought, I would buy their time. I wish Muslims would unite. And it's a fact sometimes that things cannot be attained through wishes. But if you want Muslims to unite, do something towards unity. Vain wishes won't help, or become desperate of such thing. Okay, if the Muslims unite, then I'll do. No, try to do your best, towards unity. Whether they united or not, you have done your job. Then taraji or raja, raja is, actually I wish he would have, it's called tamanni, vain wishes, and taraji is the resolved desire to seek something that can happen. Taraji is one of a number of particles which carry the same meaning, he said. For example, I wish Muslim youth would turn to the fountain from which their pure religion was established. And taraji and raja, usually it entails some attempts. You try to teach the people, you try to show them the guidance, and you wish for them goodness. Okay. Al-arz, petition, or he said petition here, a request from or for someone to be gentler. For example, when you say to a friend, won't you visit your friend? Okay, this is arz. It is in a gentle way you infer to someone to do something good. So this is arz. It's not like, amr. You don't say, visit your friend. So won't you visit your friends? What do you think about, visiting, our, brother, so and so? This is arz. Then a tahrir is a request for someone to do something by urging and encouraging him. For example, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, but this is, it was put in a resolved manner. ألا تقاتلون قوما نكثوا أيمانهم وهموا بإخراج الرسول وهم بدأوكم أول مرة أتخشونهم فالله أحق أن تخشوا إن كنتم مؤمنين. Will you not fight people who violated their oaths, who broke, or breached their covenants and their oaths, and plotted to expel the messenger, and became aggressive by being the first to assault you? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. Would you fear them? No, you should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you do believe in him, or if you are believers. Here in footnote 94, he says, this is the second line of verse of poetry commonly used to demonstrate wishful expressions. ليت ولا تنفع ليت, I wish, and I wish, and the wish, or wishing, is of no real benefit because it won't happen. ليت الشباب بيعت واشتريته. The واشتريته here should be with ضمة at the end. Okay. واشتريته. I could then, so I could buy it. Okay. If it, because it's written in the book in the footnote 94 with fatha, and if it is like that, then it would mean I wish yours were sold so you could buy it instead of I could buy it. I hope inshallah this can be noted so that inshallah we can request through Dr. Bilal, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him and gather the reward and cure for him. We heard that he's sick nowadays. نسأل الله عز وجل أن يجمع له بين الأجر والعافية. Secondly, غير طلبي. If you go over it, Sheikh Abdul Majid.
Yes, Sheikh. Secondly, غير طلبي, which is non-request. The wordings used in sealing a contract, such as I sold, I bought, I married, indicating the completion of the contract. Similarly, the words used in swearing, such as by Allah, I will speak the truth, or words used to express appreciation. For example, how excellent is a hardworking student, or words used to express dislike. For example, what a bad quality it is to be envious. Kalam is also divided into haqiqa and majaz. Scholars have three opinions on the subject of dividing speech into haqiqa, that is true meaning, and majaz, figurative meaning. Number one, majaz does not exist neither in the Arabic language nor in the Quran. Among the scholars who hold this opinion is Abu Ishaq al-Isfarani. Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah also supported this view. In the Kitab al-Iman, he writes, the division of words into haqiqa and majaz is an innovation bid'ah which arose after the first 3 centuries. None of the early scholars spoke about it, nor those who sincerely followed them, nor any of the famous scholars like Malik, Al-Thawri, Al-Awza'i, Abu Hanifa, and Shafi'i. Neither did the classical scholars of Arabic language and grammar mention it, like Al-Khalil, Shibawai, Abu Amr bin Al-Ala, and others. He further stated, and even Ash-Shafi'i, who was the first to introduce kalam in Usool al-Fiqh, did not make such a division, nor did he mention the word haqiqa or majaz. Now, shall I read the footnote, Sheikh? Or you will explain?
Yes, go ahead. Footnote. Go ahead.
Footnote number 95. Ahmad bin Abdul Halim ibn Taymiyyah, 1263 to 1328. The CE is standing for Hijrah here, Sheikh?
No. The Christian era.
Okay, Christian era.
Yes.
Was born
he
in...
actually, he died 728 Hijrah, and قدر الله ما شاء فعل. It should be actually in Hijrah, better, Yes.
Right. Was born in Harran. His father and grandfather were themselves leading scholars of Hanbali School of Islamic Law. He grew up in Damascus, where he mastered at an early age the various Islamic disciplines. Much of his time and effort was spent defending the orthodox Islamic opposition against the various deviations that were current at that time. A great deal of his latter life was spent in jail, where he died due to theological and philosophical clashes with some influential scholars of his time. Number 96, Sufyan al-Thawri, 719-777. This is also one of the early scholars, isn't it, Sheikh?
Yes, earlier
Yes.
than Sheikh al-Islam.
Sufyan al-Thawri was born in Kufa And after an extensive study of hadith and fiqh, became the main jurist of the hadith school in Kufa. He held similar views to those of his contemporary Abu Hanifa. However, he opposed the latter's use of qiyas and istihsan. Due to conflicts with officials of the Abbasid state, he was forced to give up his teaching and flee for his life, remaining in hiding until he died. Number 97, Abdul Rahman ibn al-Awza'i was born in Balabek in the year 708. He
Yes.
became known as one of the major scholars of hadith of the 8th century. He was opposed to the excessive use of qiyas and other forms of reasoning in cases where clear texts from the Quran and or Sunnah were available. Imam Awza'i spent most of his life in Beirut, eventually dying there in the year 774. But his madhab became widespread in Syria, Jordan, Palestine, and Lebanon, as well as in Spain. Number 98. Since Majaz was the greatest and most frequently used way, the widest door through which those who explained away or negated completely the divine attributes entered. Some scholars from Ahl Sunnah closed this door and cut the path leading to it by prohibiting any form of majaz in the Quran or in the Arabic language. Consequently, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah considered majaz as one of the forms of taghut in his work As-Sawa'iq al-Mursala, chapter on breaking the third taghut created by the Jahmites to cancel the reality of the names and attributes. Ibn Rajab said, the scholars who denied majaz denied use of the name so that the corrupt meaning would not be understood, and that it became a tool for one who wishes to deny the realities of the Quran and the Sunnah and their meanings. The vast majority of those who spoke about haqiqah and majaz were Mu'tazilites and those similar to them from the people of innovation. And they went to extremes with that diverting words from their proper places. Thus, they prohibited use of the name majaz and made all Arabic expression realities, saying that if an expression indicated a meaning by itself, it was its actual meaning, which is haqiqah. If it also indicated a meaning by means of a qarina, it was also the actual haqiqah meaning. Thus, it was the actual meaning in both cases. Ibn Qudama openly said that the disagreement was a matter of semantics, saying, whoever says, I do not call that majaz, is in an argument over expressions in which there is no benefit, and Allah knows best. Number
Okay.
99.
Yeah.
Shall I stop
Let's
here?
go. I guess
Number
Dawud
99.
al-Zahiri, Dawud al-Zahiri, he will talk about it later, I guess. Huh?
Okay.
Because, yeah. طيب.
Okay.
يعني first of all, Alhamdulillah, who guided us, first of all, to be Muslims and to realize and recognize, the Quran and Sunnah and believe in them. We should realize that this, categorization of kalam is a bit problematic. But before we go to that, let's just take the last paragraph on page, first paragraph 68, where he said, secondly, al-ghair talabi, non-request, okay? And he said these are the insha, like if a person would tell something, I sold, I bought, I married, okay? Indicating the completion of the contract, okay? Similarly, the words used in swearing, such as by Allah I will speak the truth, or words used to express appreciation. For example, how excellent is a hardworking student, and so on. Okay, what a bad quality it is to be envious. He said, dividing kalam into haqiqa and majaz. When one looks at it, first of all, what يعني why those people tried to look into to divide the speech into two categories, حقيقة and مجاز. حقيقة means, a real, genuine, direct, literal, apparent meanings. And majaz means what? Majaz to them is figurative, and they started to say, you're saying, أنا أسد, I am a lion, would, uh, would no doubt show us that you cannot be a lion. Rather, you are a human being. Okay. So this is figurative. But when one says, I am a lion, nobody would understand that this person is, the animal to be haqiqa. Okay. Nobody, not at all. Okay. Not any language. Okay. In the languages of the idiots, it cannot be like that. Anyone who would hear someone saying an asad, it means he's a brave man. He can attack. Okay. Nobody can touch him, for example. Okay. Show his bravery. Those people, they said, no, this is allegorical form of usage of asad. So if we use it in the animal, which is known to be asad, this is, haqiqa. But if it is used any other than, lion, than the animal, then it is majaz, which is again, a problem because of definition of haqiqa and majaz. The language, all people, any word that they use or they brand something or ascribe something or describe something, they would uh, resort to what a common sense to come and try to describe it, so that all people will come to a common understanding about that in any language. Okay, even when those people now, for example, they try, yani, this is called a mouse. Okay, so nobody would think that it is an animal. Okay, it is a mouse that one uses, for the computer. So it's a problem when the people, start to use to differentiate between what they call haqiqa and majaz, and it doesn't have any reality. Anyhow, some of the ulama said majaz means, yani, it is, an expression that is jaiz, that's known. Okay, and they said the difference here about haqiqa and majaz is just, linguistical, terminology difference, but it is not, something that goes deeply. But actually, the ulama who opposed this classification, like Abu Ishaq Isfarayini and Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and those great figures, they opposed it because it was not and never known before the 3rd century that the Sahaba or the Arab people used to speak about something, called haqiqa and majaz. Okay. And those people, when they used this terminology, they used it in order to reject and to negate Allah's attributes. And this was the essence of their argument and their technical terminology of differentiation between haqiqa and majaz. That's why the ulama took the opinion that there's no majaz whatsoever exists in Arabic or in the Quran. And any example those people, would bring to say that this is majaz, we can confront them and we can, uh, show that what they say is baseless. Like what they said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran about the brothers of Yusuf the second time when their brother said to them, go to your father and tell him the truth. And if they say to him, if he cannot, believe us, he cannot trust us that we said the truth. قولوا يا أبانا إن ابنك سرق. Your son, did a theft, okay, and he was caught because of theft. And وما شهدنا إلا بما علمنا, and we didn't witness except what we have noticed and known, okay, and come to know, realize. واسأل القرية التي كنا فيها, ask the village which we were with. واسأل القرية التي كنا فيها والعير التي أقبلنا فيها. So in their, those people, they said, here it is a figurative meaning, because they used the village to mean the people, okay? And they used the ear to mean, the people, not to, they didn't mean that Yaqub alayhi salam would go to the rocks and the walls and he would ask about, the, his sons, rather to ask the people. And the ulama, they objected on this and they said the qarya, the village, cannot be a village unless it has tenants. Otherwise, it won't be called a village. And the ear is called, it cannot be called ear without a caravan and the people who are driving this caravan. So, this is a refutation. They said, they talked about, when Al-Khadr came across, a wall, okay, and this wall was about to fall, okay. يريد أن ينقض. So they said, how come Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would, say that, the wall has a will, okay, has an intention, like, he was willing to fall. يريد أن ينقض. So they said this is a metaphorical expression or figurative, figuratively used or usage. But actually, the ulama, they said, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has said the haqiqah, the truth, and every, created being, whether it is an object or a human being or an animal or a plant, it has its own, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could give it the ability or the will. As you remember and recall that the Prophet ﷺ said there was a stone or a rock that used to greet him ﷺ before he was commissioned as a prophet. And this was, this was some signs, telling the Prophet ﷺ, that there is a mission behind, that. So supreme example to Allah and to His Messenger, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah, okay, it was direct and real and haqiqah, truth. There is nothing called, majaz as they meant it. Because those people, they said, they started to say when they were confronted, what's the meaning of haqiqah and majaz? They said haqiqah is the usage of a word, okay, at its original, base meaning, okay, and the figurative or majaz means usage of the less likely shade of its meanings, okay, due to a qarina. Qarina means due to, a reason behind it or a justification. But then when they were confronted and said, how come you would say it is, and like, for example, we mentioned this many times, ras. Ras in Arabic means head. But whether it was used first of all to mean human being head, okay, or to mean the head of the village or the tribe, means the, the chief, or the head of the state, or the head of the mountain, nobody can tell where it was used originally to have that meaning, okay? and then it was then taken to mean others by, you know, allegorically or figuratively. So this was the problem those people were faced and opposed with. And the bottom line is to say, as we mentioned, that there is, the haqiqa and majaz was not known at all, from the narrations or from the kalam of the ulama. And it was not never mentioned by the prominent and grounded scholars in Arabic, like Shafi'i rahimahullah, or like those before him, Imam Malik and the Thawri, Al-Awza'i, Abu Hanifa, uh, rahimahullah al-Jami'. Neither even the classical, and the known Arabic linguistics, like Al-Khalil, or Sibawayh, Abu Amr ibn al-Ala, all of these were, scholars of Arabic language. It was never mentioned on behalf of them that they divided and categorized speech or kalam into haqiqa and majaz. And Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah spoke about kalam in his book, Risala, and in Usool Fiqh particularly. So if it was something known from the Arabic language, then he would have mentioned it. Okay. Even when he said, in footnote 98, he said, since majaz was the greatest and most frequently used way, and it was actually the worst and most frequently used way, the widest door through which those who explained away and negated completely the divine attributes, they took that as a gate to enter from. Some scholars from Ahl Sunnah closed this door and cut the path leading to it. Because those people, they didn't mean, to say majaz means you can use the word in many other forms and other shades of meanings. No, rather they want to say that the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are used here figuratively, so you should not believe that it has any meaning, or they would, the least amongst them in evil, he would say, Allah knows its meaning. We should not touch it. We should just, say what Allah said without knowing any meaning or ascribing any meaning, which is again, a way leading to negation of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to understand. Because if you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a Razzaq, is al-Alim, is al-Alim, sorry, al-Alim, so it will make you observe yourself, in seeking provision, not to do it unlawfully. If you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Wahhab, the endower, you will seek Allah through his name al-Wahhab to give you and shower you and bless you and bestow on you, his grace, his mercy. Okay. So those people, when they, stripped the names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from their meanings, it became a problem to the extent that we came to reach a people who started to say that the Quran cannot be understood by anybody. It has, figurative meanings. It has hidden meanings. It has, to the extent they started to say, haqiqa is only known to some high post ranked, awliya, that they don't tell anybody, about it. And the meanings are obscure, and everything in the Quran and Sunnah cannot be taken, literally. It cannot be taken as an apparent meaning. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not, asked the people to ponder and reflect and contemplate upon his ayat and to practice them. O people, you who believe, O people of the book, or you who disbelieved, may Allah save us. So those people, they said the Quran has, other haqiqa, underneath the apparent meanings. And they could, what had happened between Al-Khadr and Moses, and as an example to make the whole Quran like that. And they said, you know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, like for example, this is, you know, Rafidites, they said, مرج البحرين يلتقيان. It doesn't mean, you know, two seas, you know, meet, because they didn't, those people realized that it is, you know, miraculously mentioning of this fact in the Quran, that the two seas of different, subhanallah, kind of water, of different kind, whether it is pure fresh water and salty water, when they meet, they do not mix. And it cannot be seen. Now it's easy to see it on, you know, on YouTube or any place if those people have gone to Egypt. So they said, Maraj al-Bahrain here means, the two seas means Aisha, sorry, Fatima and Ali. بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. مرج البحرين يلتقيان, they meet. بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان, the barzakh here, the barrier, is the messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. So nobody would transgress against the other. Okay. يخرج منهم اللؤلؤ والمرجان, this is Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein. So this is, they said, this is the batinite or the inward the meanings of the Quran and Sunnah, which is actually, may Allah save us, it's nonsense and taking the Quran out of its context, you know, and would show that, you know, the Quran and Sunnah can be played with. Anybody would claim anything, you know, like that. Okay. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge and faith. We'll just stop. That's why Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah, he mentioned it as a taghut. Taghut means an idol they, you know, they cling to, where they, you know, worship, you know, that goes against the Quran and Sunnah. So that's why he called it taghut al-majaz. Ibn Rajab, when he said the scholars who denied majaz denied use of the name, okay, so that the corrupt meaning would not be understood and that it become a tool for one who wishes to deny the realities of the Quran and Sunnah. And he said the vast majority of those who spoke about Haqiqah and Majaz were the innovators, Ahlul Bid'ah. And they went to extremes, okay, with that diverting words from their proper places in the Quran and Sunnah. Thus, the ulama, they prohibited, you know, the use of the name Majaz. But he said, you know, it was saying that if an expression indicated a meaning by itself, it was its actual meaning and haqiqah. And if it also indicated a meaning by means of a qarina, by means of another inference through another, you know, reasonable thing, then they said, or reason behind the justification, it was also actual haqiqah meaning. Thus, it was the actual meaning in both cases. And some of them, they said this is just, you know, a difference in our, you know, semantics says. Whoever says I don't call that majaz is an argument over expressions in which there is no benefit. I mean, again, the problem, if there is no benefit behind it, why to say it from the first place? Like, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the way most pleasing to Him. Inshallah, next week we will carry on from where we stopped after we, you know, talk slightly about the majaz again, because number 2 and number 3 goes over, you know, more emphasis about this topic, and inshallah it will be clarified. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge and faith. If you have a question, you can ask. If not, then we have finished our topic today. Any question, brothers? اللهم إنا نعوذ برضاك من سخطك وبمعافاتك من عقوبتك وبك منك لا نحصي ثناء عليك. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجذام ومن سيء الأسقام. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من الشرك والشقاق والنفاق ومن سيء الأخلاق. اللهم نعوذ بك من الهم والعجز والكسل والجبن والبخل، ونعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجذام ومن سيء الأسقام. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خيرا and see you inshallah next week. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خير شيخ.
آمين وإياكم أجمعين.